Marry me and I'll help you raise your daughters. The words, spoken with quiet certainty by the poised, silver-haired woman in a power suit, hung in the air like the last note of a piano ballad. Across the table, Marcus Chen sat stunned, his calloused hands trembling ever so slightly, not from the cold rain lashing against the coffee shop window behind him, but from the weight of her words. But before he responded, before the walls he built could rise in defense, he looked her dead in the eye and asked, before anything else, "Let's see if this even makes sense. What's one thing you can see from your window right now?" Just minutes earlier, Marcus had been drowning in thoughts as heavy as the storm outside. His phone screen still glowed dimly on the table, mocking him with a bank balance that had dipped below $200 for the third time this month. 3 more weeks until his disability check would arrive, and to growing daughters who needed more than peanut butter sandwiches and tap water. 8-year-old Lily, the more outspoken of the two, pressed her nose to the fogged-up glass display, filled with colorful pastries. "Daddy, can we get the chocolate muffin?" Her voice was full of innocent hope. 6-year-old Emma clung to his sleeve, wide-eyed, pointing at a swirl of raspberry tarts like they were treasure. Marcus' throat clenched. The light came out brittle. "Maybe next time, sweetheart." The words stung worse than the wind slapping against the window's dot. Then came the voice, "Excuse me, sir." He turned, expecting a barista, but instead met the eyes of a woman who didn't belong in this modest cafe. Her suit alone probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her silver hair was immaculately styled, her blue eyes as sharp as a scalpel, yet softened by something that felt familiar. "I'm Victoria Blackwood," she said, her voice low but resolute. "I didn't mean to intrude. I'm here because of you, Mr. Chen. I've been looking for you." A shiver ran down his spine. "Lady, I don't know who you are, but you're Marcus Chen, 34, former construction foreman, 2 daughters Lily and Emma. You've been out of work for 8 months since the Morrison site accident. You're behind on rent. You've sold most of what you own to feed your kids." Her voice wasn't cruel, it was clinical, matter of fact. But the shame that crawled across Marcus's skin burned all the same. "How the hell do you know that?" Victoria glanced at his daughters and softened. "Because I'm making my business to know about the people who matter. And Mr. Chen, you matter more than you realize." She pulled a tablet from her sleek briefcase and turned it toward him. A photograph glowed on the screen, faded by dust and time, but unmistakable. Him, 2 decades younger, in desert fatigues, smoke curling behind him, a burning Humvee, and beside him a woman soldier, her features half obscured by ash and chaos. Marcus's breath hitched. The memory, long buried, slammed into him with unforgiving clarity. The searing metal, the explosion, the adrenaline, the screaming, the way he had pulled her out from under the twisted wreckage without hesitation. "Operation Enduring Freedom," Victoria whispered. 2019. Forward Operating Base Chapman. "You saved my daughter's life that day, Mr. Chen." The tablet slipped from his numb hands and clattered against the table. "Sarah Morrison," he murmured, haunted. "She lived. She did. She came home, got married, had a son, but 3 years ago, she died in a car accident." Victoria's voice cracked, the first sign of vulnerability behind the powerhouse persona. "But she lived," she added, voice trembling, "because of you." The cafe felt suddenly too small, too quiet. Lily and Emma sat frozen, not fully understanding, but aware that something sacred was unfolding in front of them. Victoria leaned closer. "Before Sarah died, she made me promise something. If anything ever happened to her, I was to find you, to make sure the man who gave her another chance at life was given one to." Marcus stared at her, heart pounding. "You're her mother. I'm her stepmother, but I raised her from when she was 12. She was everything to me." For a brief moment, the titan of industry let the mask fall, and beneath it was just a grieving mother, hollowed out by loss. "She gave me a mission, Mr. Chen, and I always complete my missions." They left the cafe together, Victoria, Marcus, and the girls who clung to his coat like ducklings. Outside, her car waited. a gleaming black Mercedes that purred like a panther in the rain. As they drove through downtown Seattle, past shimmering towers and neon lights, Emma and Lily pressed their faces to the windows, mesmerized by a world they'd never seen from this angle. 20 minutes later, they stood in the marble atrium of Blackwood Industries, a monument to wealth, power, and ambition. Marcus had once laid bricks for towers like this. He never imagined walking through the front doors. The elevator hummed softly as it ascended to the 38th floor. Victoria's office was a sanctuary of quiet opulence, mahogany wood, soft leather, and a panoramic view of Elliott Bay that stretched like a painting across the glass. "Daddy, look." Emma pointed to a wall of framed awards. "She has so many prizes." Victoria chuckled. "Those are just for boring grown-up things. Would you girls like juice and cookies while I talk to your dad?" Mrs. Patterson, a warm woman with gentle eyes, led them to a nearby room where they were soon giggling over coloring books and snacks. Victoria poured coffee from a machine that likely cost more than Marcus's car. She sat across from him, cradling her cup like it was anchoring her. "I'm 62, she began. "I built this company from nothing after my first husband died young. I've amassed more money than I could ever spend. Homes in 6 countries. I've climbed every ladder. But for all that," she paused, the crack in her voice returning, "I failed where it mattered most. I never had children of my own. Sarah became my world, and when she died, I had no one, no legacy, just board meetings and empty rooms." Outside the glass wall, Marcus watched his daughters laugh with the insistent sound he hadn't heard in weeks. "I tried everything," she said. "Charities, hospitals, foundations. But nothing filled the silence Sarah left behind, until I remembered what she'd asked of me." She walked to her desk and picked up a silver-framed photo of Sarah. "In uniform, she told me to find you and take care of you." Marcus's throat tightened. "Mrs. Blackwood, I don't know what you're trying to—" "Let me finish." Her voice was calm, commanding, but kind. "I know about your wife's death, about how you raised your daughters through your own grief. I know about the injury that ended your career, the 200 job applications you sent out, the rejection letters, the sleepless nights." Each word struck him like a chisel to stone. "But I also know you never gave up, not once. Your daughters adore you. You've kept them hopeful in a hopeless world. That kind of strength, it's rare." Then she said it. "I have wealth but no family. You have love but no support. I live in houses full of silence. You have daughters whose laughter could fill a cathedral." She walked toward him, her voice steady. "So here is my proposition." She reached into her briefcase once more, and this time pulled out an envelope sealed with crimson wax. "Marcus, marry me, and let me help you raise those beautiful girls." The silence was absolute. It wrapped around them like fog thick with confusion, disbelief, and something far deeper. Marcus looked at her as if she had just offered him a lifeboat in the middle of a storm. Through the glass, he saw Lily showing Mrs. Patterson a drawing, her smile bright, unburdened for the first time in months. "You can't be serious," he whispered, barely able to form the words. "I am," she replied, her tone unwavering. "I don't make proposals business or personal without intent." He stood, pacing to the window. The city stretched beneath them, unaware of the 2 lives colliding above it. "You don't even know me. I know more than you think," she said softly. "I know you haven't let yourself love anyone since your wife. I know you've given everything to your daughters, and I know that deep down, you're the kind of man Sarah believed in." Marcus turned, his face torn between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you saved her, because she asked me to, and because maybe we both need a second chance." Marcus's hand drifted instinctively to the empty place on his finger, where his wedding ring used to rest, a simple gold band that once symbolized everything. Now sold to buy antibiotics for Emma's ear infection, the absence still throbbed like an open wound. "How did you know about that?" he asked, his voice quiet with disbelief. Victoria stood beside him at the window, her presence calm and composed. her perfume faint yet warm like jasmine on a summer wind. Because I make it my business to understand the people I invest in. Her gaze followed his to the city beyond the glass. And make no mistake, Mr. Chen, this is an investment in you, in your girls, and in something we've both been without for a very long time. He turned to her, his brow furrowed. What's that? Family, she said. The word landed heavily in the space between them, weighted with equal parts danger and possibility. Marcus thought of their tiny apartment, of the overdue bills stuffed in a drawer, and of the hollowness behind his daughter's eyes when they thought he wasn't looking. This isn't how people get married, he said, the words escaping him like a confession. This feels like a transaction. Victoria gave a slow nod. Yes, at first, it is. But may I call you Marcus? Sometimes, the strongest partnerships begin with practicality. My first marriage was a strategic alliance in Hong Kong. Over time, love bloomed. We were happy, deeply happy for 15 years before cancer stole him from me. She turned fully to face him now. The afternoon sun caught the blue in her eyes, painting her face with a kind of soft sorrow. I'm not asking for your love or your body. I'm offering a partnership, a way forward for both of us. And what is it you need most? Her composure flickered. The fortress of her professionalism cracked just enough to reveal a raw, aching loneliness. I need to be needed again. I want to hear children laughing in the hallways. I want someone to care if I don't come home at night. I don't want to die in a sterile hospital room, surrounded by lawyers and executives who call me ma'am out of obligation. Marcus felt something move in his chest, a shifting, a recognition of the pain that mirrored his own. Grief meeting. Grief. I know this sounds clinical, but think about it. Your daughters would want for nothing the best schools, college savings, the kind of opportunities that are just dreams right now. That you'd have medical care for your back, stability, and precious time to be the father you're trying so hard to be, instead of breaking yourself across 3 jobs. Through the window, Emma looked up from the playground below and waved. Her gap-toothed smile was as bright as the Seattle skyline behind her. Marcus waved back automatically, his mind spinning. And what do you get from this? He asked. Victoria's lips curved into a wistful smile. I get to be a grandmother to little girls who need one. I get to help raise Sarah's legacy, the daughters of the man who once saved her life. And maybe, if fate is kind, I learned that there's more than one way to build a family. He turned again to the window, his reflection a ghost on the glass. Behind him, Victoria walked back to her desk, giving him the space he needed to breathe. His logical mind, the one that had kept them afloat this long, was already doing the math. No more eviction threats. No more choosing between dinner and the power bill. No more watching his daughters hide their hunger behind fake smiles. But the part of him still wrapped around Rebecca, the part that wore a wedding band until he was forced to part with it, resisted. It felt like betrayal, like letting go of the promise he'd made to the girl he'd loved since they were teenagers. I need time, he said. Of course, Victoria's voice was gentle, without urgency. But Marcus, what would Rebecca want for those girls? The question hit with the force of a blow. He didn't have to wonder. He knew. Rebecca would want them safe, happy, loved. She'd trade anything, even his loyalty to her memory, for their future. He could almost hear her whisper from the shadows of their old life. Take care of our babies, Marcus, whatever it takes. That night, he sat on the edge of his bed in their cramped apartment. Victoria's business card lay in his palm, its gold lettering catching the weak light from the single working lamp. His daughters were asleep on the pull-out couch in the next room, their quiet breathing the only sound in a home too small for their dreams. The conversation with Victoria played over in his mind like a song stuck on repeat. Her offer, both miraculous and terrifying, felt like a rope thrown to a drowning man, but not in questions of love, loyalty, and what it truly meant to build a family. His phone buzzed, a text from the landlord. Rent's late again, Marcus. Payment by Friday or eviction starts. Sorry, man. He set the phone down and reached under the bed for the showbox. Inside was what remained of the life he'd built with Rebecca. wedding photos, love letters, hospital bracelets from the girls' births. At the very bottom, swaddled in tissue paper, lay her engagement ring. He unwrapped it carefully, a modest solitaire chosen not for its size, but for its promise. Rebecca had picked it from a pawn shop before his first deployment, telling him she didn't need diamonds, just his promise to come back. He held it up to the light. What should I do, Becca? The ring offered no answers, only memories. A phone call interrupted his reverie. His sister Jenny, Portland. 3 kids, struggling, but willing to help. Hey, sis, he answered. Marcus, about the girls, Dave and I talked. We could make room. It won't be easy, but no. He interrupted, voice firm. I appreciate it, truly, but I can't separate them from me. They've lost too much already. But Marcus, you're drowning. I can hear it. They need stability. I can provide it. He said, more forcefully than intended, I'm working on something, a possibility. What kind of possibility? He hesitated. How could he explain this without sounding unhinged? It's complicated, but I need you to trust me. Can you give me a week? She sighed. Of course, but Marcus, don't let pride cost those girls what they need. It won't, I promise. After the call, he tiptoed into the living room. Lily had kicked off her blanket. He gently tucked it back around her shoulders. Emma clutched her stuffed elephant, Rebecca's final gift, before the end. Their sleeping faces, so like their mothers, pierced him with equal parts pain and purpose. He thought of Victoria's elegant office, of Mrs. Patterson's kindness, of Victoria's voice cracking just slightly as she confessed her longing for a house filled with laughter. It hadn't been just business. Maybe this wasn't about traditional love. Maybe it was about mutual salvation, about 2 broken souls building something whole from their shattered pieces. He returned to his room, picked up the card, and typed out a message before fear could stop him. I'd like to discuss terms. When can we meet? Her reply came quickly. My house, tomorrow evening. 7 p.m. I'll send a car. And Marcus, bring the girls. They should see where they might be living. Hope stirred in his chest. Tentative, trembling, real. For the first time since the accident, since the rejection letters, since the meal skipped for his daughter's sake, he could see a sliver of a future. Whether it held love, he couldn't say, but maybe, just maybe, it held home. Rain tapped gently at the window. Not a mournful sound this time, but something softer like possibility. Victoria's home was not what he'd imagined. No sterile marble or cold steel. Instead, ivy curled up the walls of a Tudor-style home nestled in the Queen Anne district. Flower boxes spilled over with late-season color, and warm lights glowed through leaded windows. The black sedan rolled into the driveway, and Lily and Emma gasped in wonder. Daddy, it looked like a castle, Emma whispered. Before they could knock, the door swung open. Victoria stood in the frame, not in the designer suit, but jeans and a cream sweater. Her hair pulled back, her face open and welcoming. Welcome, she said, bending to meet the girls eye to eye. I'm so glad you're here. I have something special planned for dinner. Inside, the house was elegant. Yes, but more than that, it was lived in. Photos of smiling people adorned the walls. Books spilled from shelves. A fire danced in the stone hearth. 2 golden retrievers raised their heads lazily from a Persian rug. Dogs, Lily squealed, already racing forward. Victoria laughed. That's Fitzgerald and Gatsby. Gentle old souls. They're used to little hands as the girls sank into doggy cuddles. Marcus followed Victoria through the house. It was big, yes, but not intimidating. 5 bedrooms, each one full of warmth, each one carrying the faint echo of laughter. And for the first time, Marcus didn't feel like an intruder. He felt invited. She lingered in the upstairs hallway, her hand brushing against the polished banister before pausing in front of 2 adjacent doors. I had Mrs. Patterson pick up a few things, Victoria said softly. Opening the first door, it revealed a room, painted in a gentle palette of lavender and ivory, sunlight filtering through gossamer curtains. A canopy bed stood proudly in the center, its delicate netting fluttering slightly in the breeze. Built-in bookshelves line the far wall, already filled with age-appropriate novels, their colorful spines inviting exploration. For Lily, she added, the second room, cheerful and sun-drenched, was painted in warm hues of yellow and honey. Twin beds flanked the play area littered with art supplies, puzzles, and educational toys meticulously ranged. It was a child sanctuary and imaginative world brought to life. And for Emma, she continued. Marcus stood at the threshold, overwhelmed. The sheer intentionality of it, all the details, the warmth was almost too much. These weren't just rooms, they were promises. Victoria, you didn't have to. I wanted to, she replied gently, without pretense. I wanted them to feel that this could truly be their home if you choose to accept my proposal. They continued through the house until they reached her study, a space smaller and far more intimate than the sprawling offices at her corporate headquarters. The walls were lined with photographs that chronicled a lifetime of triumphs. Victoria shaking hands with dignitaries, receiving humanitarian awards, delivering speeches before captivated audiences. But one corner held Marcus' gaze. There, in quiet reverence, was a gallery dedicated solely to Sarah. She was radiant, Marcus murmured, stopping at a photo of Sarah in her wedding dress. Her eyes sparkled with a joy that transcended the frame. Inside and out, Victoria replied, her voice shaded with grief and adoration. She would have been an extraordinary mother. She had this way of making everyone feel seen, valued as if they were the most important person in the world. Marcus glanced at her like her stepmother. The compliment caught her off guard. Her eyes softened. I tried to give her everything I never had: stability, unconditional love, the courage to chase her dreams. Laughter floated up from below, sudden and musical. Small fingers pressed piano keys in the parlor, weaving together a halting melody. The house, so often quiet, seemed to exhale. They're taking piano lessons? Victoria asked, a note of curiosity brightening her tone. No, Marcus admitted, sheepish. We can't afford lessons. Lily's been teaching herself library books, YouTube tutorials. She has a gift. Victoria's eyes lit with recognition. I studied piano for 12 years. If she's interested, I'd be honored to teach her. They found the girls in the music room. Lily sat upright at the grand piano, carefully pressing the keys as Emma danced in circles, lost in the melody. The sight tugged at Marcus' heart, a vision of joy and potential he thought forever out of reach. Dinner's ready, Victoria called, smiling. Spaghetti and meatballs. I hope that's a hit. The meal was unpretentious and warm. Conversation flowed naturally, laughter interwoven with tales of school, friendships, and favorite subjects. Victoria listened intently, never patronizing, genuinely interested in their stories. She shared adventures from her global travels, her words painting vibrant pictures that mesmerized the girls. Later, as the girls played nearby under the watchful gaze of the patient golden retrievers, Marcus sat with Victoria in her study, coffee in hand. He braced for the conversation they'd skirted all evening. Before we talk about terms, she said, her tone quiet but firm, you need to understand something. This isn't charity, Marcus. This is partnership. I'm not here to rescue you. I believe we can rescue each other. Marcus nodded slowly. The distinction was subtle but deeply meaningful. If you agree to this arrangement, I want the girls legally adopted as my daughters. You'll retain equal say in all decisions. But I won't be a silent benefactor. I want to be involved fully. Homework, school events, bedtime stories, and scraped knees. He met her eyes. And us, what would our marriage look like? Victoria considered the question with the same gravity she brought to boardroom negotiations. Separate bedrooms, at least for now. No physical expectations unless that evolves naturally. Publicly, we'll be united. We'll attend events together, raise the girls as a team. I'm open to whatever this may become, but I won't force intimacy, and I will demand it from the living room. Lily's music rose again, this time more intricate, more confident. A promise hidden within melody. Victoria hesitated. There's something else. Something I never told you about Sarah's death. The room fell still. Marcus could sense the weight of her words before they came. It wasn't just a random accident. She was on her way to meet me for lunch. A drunk driver ran a red light. She was alive when the ambulance arrived, conscious, in pain. A witness heard her last words, her voice fractured, trembling with the memory. She said, "Tell Victoria to find Marcus Chen. Tell her to keep her promise. Tell her that love comes in many forms." Marcus felt the weight of it settle into his bones. Sarah, on the brink of death, had thought of him, of the man who once showed her kindness when she was just a lost girl in a city park. "So you see," Victoria said, voice ragged with emotion, "this isn't just about want or need. It's about honoring her, creating something meaningful from her final wish." Marcus looked toward the living room. Lily and Emma were laughing as they built a fort from pillows, safe under the watch of their canine guardians. They looked alive again, truly alive. "What are your terms?" he asked quietly. Victoria smiled. For the first time, the tension in her shoulders eased. "Let's start with the wedding. We'll figure the rest out together." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before a full-length mirror in Victoria's guest bedroom, adjusting his tie for the third time. The gray suit tailored precisely to account for the lingering effects of his back injury fit like a second skin. Through the window, he could see the garden, chairs arranged under a rose-covered arbor, the sunlight dancing over golden leaves. A knock interrupted his nervous reverie. "Come in," he called. Jenny stepped inside, concern and affection etched across her face. She'd driven up from Portland that morning, despite his insistence she needn't come. "So, this is real," she said, scanning the elegant room. Marcus nodded, unable to summon words. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I've met Victoria. She seems wonderful, but marriage to a woman you barely know, I know her better now," he said. And he did. Countless evenings spent talking, therapy sessions navigating this unique arrangement, watching her with his daughters. "What if one of you falls in love with someone else?" Jenny pressed. He'd asked himself the same question, again and again, in the quiet hours of night. "Then we'll deal with it if it happens. Right now, this is what's best for all of us." Jenny rose and embraced him. "I just want you to be happy. You've sacrificed so much already." "This isn't a sacrifice," he whispered. And for the first time, he believed it. "It's a chance to give my daughters everything they deserve." Beneath an arbor of roses, surrounded by a whispering breeze and golden autumn light, Marcus walked toward the altar. Lily and Emma danced ahead, scattering petals in their wake. Victoria waited in a simple ivory gown, Sarah's pearl necklace gleaming softly against her collarbone dot as Marcus joined her. She squeezed his hand. "No regrets," she whispered. "None," he answered, and meant it. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. Judge Morrison led them through vows they'd written together. Victoria spoke first. Steady and warm. "Marcus, I promise to be your partner in raising these incredible girls, to respect the boundaries we've set, and to honor the memory of the woman who made this all possible." His throat thickened as he responded, "Victoria, I promise to help you build a family rooted in purpose and love, to heal alongside you, to give this partnership my full commitment." When they were pronounced married, Victoria kissed his cheek gently, a touch that felt more comforting than strange. The girls whooped with delight, wrapping their arms around them both. And in that moment, Marcus felt a flicker of something new, something hopeful. Dinner was quiet and joyful. Just the five of them and Mrs. Patterson, now a beloved fixture in the girls' lives. Later, as dusk fell and laughter echoed from the garden, Marcus and Victoria sat on the back porch. "So," she asked with a wry smile, "how does it feel to be married to a complete stranger?" He chuckled, tension unraveling. "Like the start of something I don't have words for." She nodded. "Exactly as it should be. If we knew how it would all unfold, it wouldn't be an adventure." From the garden came Lily's joyous shout, followed by Emma's giggle. The girls were thriving, nourished, secure. "Thank you," Marcus said, voice low, "for giving them everything I couldn't." "Thank you," she replied, for giving me something. I thought I'd never have again a reason to be needed. They sat in silence, watching their daughters play in the fading light, and Marcus knew then love, in all its forms, could be built, even if it started as something else. That night, they retired to separate rooms, but before sleep claimed him, Marcus heard Victoria's voice through the baby monitor she quietly installed soft, comforting, telling Emma a bedtime story, telling her she was safe, home, loved. She was curled up on the floor with the girls, their laughter woven through the cozy hush of bedtime, a melody of innocence and joy that wrapped around Marcus like a lullaby. It had been years since he'd felt this kind of peace, this fragile, golden stillness that didn't ask anything of him but to simply exist within it. As their voices faded into sleepy whispers and soft breaths, he allowed his own body to give in to rest. For once, the night wasn't a battlefield of worries. No ghosts haunted the edges of his mind. Tomorrow could bring whatever storms it pleased. Tonight, the people he loved most were safe, warm, and content, and that he realized was the bedrock of hope. Half a year into their improbable marriage, Marcus lingered in the doorway of Victoria's home office, struck by the sight before him. The woman who had once been an untouchable titan of industry now sat cross-legged in faded jeans, and a best stepmom ever t-shirt, Emma's birthday gift, patiently guided Lily through algebra equations. If x equals 7 and we multiply that by 3, what do we get? She asked, her tone a blend of gentle warmth and calm authority. 21, Lily chirped, her eyes sparkling with pride. Exactly. Now, what happens if we add the original value of x? From the sidelines, Marcus watched his daughter's mind unfurl and bloom in real time, the light of comprehension illuminating her whole face. She had always been quick, but now surrounded by stability, love, and encouragement, her intelligence had space to stretch and soar. Her grades had shot up. She was excelling in classes she would never have access in their old life. Dad, Emma burst out of the kitchen, smudged with flour and what appeared to be copious amounts of chocolate chip cookie dough. Victoria's teaching me to bake for the school sale, is she now? Marcus chuckled, lifting her into his arms, heedless of the sticky batter now smeared across his shirt. I may have let her double the chocolate chips, Victoria added, emerging with a soft grin and flour dusting her silver-streaked hair like snow. The moment felt so far removed from the measured, tentative partnership they'd started with two adults dancing cautiously around each other, afraid of missteps, of pushing too hard, of hurting the fragile thing they were trying to build. But time had smoothed those jagged edges. Bit by bit, they had learned each other's rhythms, shared the labor of love and parenting, and built trust not just through grand gestures, but through 1,000 small choices. How was physical therapy? Victoria asked, a knowing glint in her eyes. She had become expert at reading the micro-shifts in his posture. Dr. Martinez says I might be ready for light work again. Maybe site consulting or project oversight. Nothing strenuous yet. She beamed. That's amazing, but only if it's what you want. You know you don't have to work. Not anymore. That had been one of their recurring debates. Victoria had insisted that Marcus choose his path based on desire, not desperation. It had taken months for him to shed the shame, the bruised ego of being taken care of, to begin to understand the kind of dignity that came from freedom, not from struggle. I've been thinking, he said, setting Emma down gently, about Sarah. Victoria's face softened. Her daughter's memory was not a wound between them anymore, but a shared, sacred thread. They had grieved together. They had honored her together. The anniversary is coming, Marcus continued, and I realized I've never truly thanked her, never visited her grave, never told her what she made possible for us. You want to go? Victoria's voice quivered, tears forming but not falling. I want the girls to come to. I want them to know who she was, to understand that this family we've built has started with her. She reached for his hand, no hesitation. That simple touch had become second nature. Marcus, that means more to me than I can say. There's something else. His voice faltered, nerves coiling in his stomach. I've been thinking. about what this marriage is, what it could be. Victoria's eyes locked on his. She knew where this was headed. They both did. I know we began this as an arrangement to people trying to stay afloat, but over these months, you've become more than a partner on paper. You're my friend, my confidant, my daughter's mother in all the ways that count. She inhaled sharply, visibly moved. I'm not saying I'm in love, he said quickly. I honestly don't know what that feels like anymore, but I care about you, Victoria. I trust you, and I enjoy being with you more than I've enjoyed anything in a long time. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was hushed but sure. I feel the same. I didn't expect to, but I do. You've brought me back to life, Marcus. Not just with the girls. You've made me feel like a woman again, not a grieving widow, not a CEO. Just me. From the kitchen, a timer buzzed and laughter followed. Cookies were ready. Life called them back to it. They both laughed, the tension dissolving. So, what are you saying? She asked. I'm saying maybe we stop pretending this is just logistics. Maybe we see where this goes, no timelines, no pressure, just honesty. Victoria nodded slowly. Openness. I like that. As they walked into the kitchen, her fingers found his. A small, quiet gesture, but one that bridged something vast and unspoken. By the way, Victoria said, I think we should bring roses from Sarah's bush. I planted one from her favorite variety in the garden. It's blooming now. Marcus squeezed her hand. Heartful. She loved that. The kitchen was a riot of crumbs and laughter. But Marcus saw something rare and precious in the chaos. Somewhere along the way, survival had blossomed into belonging. Whatever came next, romance, or simply more of this steady companionship, it would rest on a foundation of trust, love, and something that felt very much like home. But even the sturdiest bonds get tested. The fight started over something trivial, a housekeeper, of all things. Victoria had merely suggested getting help to manage the larger home, but Marcus bristled, his voice tightening as he loaded the dishwasher like it had personally offended him. I don't need someone else doing my job, he muttered. It's not about that. Victoria replied carefully. You're returning to work. I'm traveling. The girls are busy. We could use support. He snapped. You mean you could? The room chilled. Victoria's patience, usually steel-bound, finally frayed. Our daughters, Marcus. They became our daughters the moment you signed those papers. The house was unusually quiet, no girls to diffuse the tension. Just silence thickened by months of unspoken fears and bruised egos. So this is what it's always been. Marcus turned to her, bitter. The poor broken vet, saved by the wealthy widow. Her face went pale. You were 3 days from eviction, she said quietly. Lily had lost 12 pounds. You were selling Rebecca's jewelry to buy antibiotics each. Word landed like a slap. Shame curdled in his gut. So this is charity, he said. I'm your pet project. How dare you, she whispered, her voice raw. You think I learned how to braid Lily's hair out of pity, that I held Emma during nightmares because I felt sorry for you. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm scared, Marcus, scared you'll realize you don't need me, that the girls don't need me, that I'm just a rich woman who bought herself a family because she couldn't make one the normal way. Her vulnerability stunned him. The armor had cracked, and underneath was a woman just as afraid of being left behind as he was. The silence stretched, heavy with truths still long buried. In that moment, neither of them was strong, neither powerful, just a wounded souls trying to build something they didn't think they deserved. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was where healing truly began. Marcus felt his anger seep away, dissolving into a turbulent mix of guilt and reluctant understanding. Victoria, I didn't mean. Yes, you did, she interjected, her voice trembling as she wiped at her tears with the back of her hand. There was a rawness to her grief, barely contained beneath her composed exterior. And maybe you're right. Maybe this was never real to begin with. Just me, trying to plug the hole Sarah left behind by pushing myself into a family that doesn't belong to me. Marcus stepped forward instinctively, but Victoria pulled back. the space between them now charged with silent pain, the physical distance mirroring the emotional chasm that had cracked open between them. "I should check on the Henderson contract," she said, retreating behind the familiar armor of professionalism. "There are calls I need to make to Tokyo." She turned to leave the kitchen, but Marcus reached out gently, his hand brushing her arm. "Victoria, wait, please." She paused, her back still to him. "I'm scared to," he admitted quietly. "Every morning, I wake up in this house that's too perfect, too beautiful for someone like me. I see you teaching my daughters things I never could, and I watch how they look at you with love, with joy, and all I can think is, when will you wake up and realize you could have had this life with someone who actually deserves you?" Victoria turned slowly, her eyes red but dry now, hardened not with anger but with aching vulnerability. "What do you mean?" Marcus dragged a hand through his hair, frustration and shame battling for space on his face. "You could have married anyone, someone from your world, a successful businessman, a widower with polished shoes and a wine cellar, an equal partner, not some charity case with 2 kids and a pile of debt. Is that really what you think this is?" she asked, her voice catching. "I don't know what to think anymore," he said, defeated. 8 months ago, you were a stranger offering me a business deal, and now you're my partner, my best friend, the only person I trust. But I still can't understand why you chose me when you had so many easier paths." Victoria exhaled and sank into a stool at the kitchen island, her shoulders sagging under the weight of withheld truths. "Do you really want to know why I chose you?" Marcus nodded and took the seat across from her. "Because that day in the coffee shop, when I saw you with your girls, I saw something I'd spent my whole life chasing but never catching. It wasn't money or power or even romantic love. It was the way you looked at your daughters as if they were your entire universe. I saw a man who would give everything, without resentment, without hesitation. I saw the kind of parent I dreamed of becoming but never had the chance to be." Her gaze locked with his, unwavering and clear. "I didn't pick you out of pity, Marcus. I chose you because I admired you, because I wanted to learn from you how to love that fiercely, that selflessly." Something unknotted inside Marcus, a tightness he hadn't even realized he carried, until it began to loosen. "And yes," she added, her voice softening, "I do want to hire a housekeeper, not because I think you can't handle the chores, but because I want to spend our time building memories, not folding laundry. I want more nights like this, where we talk through our fears instead of stuffing them away." He reached across the island and wrapped his fingers around hers. "I'm sorry. I was being an ass." "You were being human," she said gently, squeezing his hand. "We both were. Maybe it's time we had this fight. It means we're not pretending anymore. So, what does that mean for us?" A genuine smile broke through her weary expression. "It means we're becoming a real family, with all the messy parts included, fears, arguments, and the kind of honesty that only comes when you truly care." Marcus nodded, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. "In that case, let's hire the damn housekeeper. And Victoria, thank you for choosing us, even when we didn't make it easy. Thank you," she said, "for letting me." Exactly 1 year after their wedding, Marcus stumbled across a truth that shattered the foundation of everything he believed about their relationship. He hadn't meant to find it. He'd been looking for Lily's birth certificate in Victoria's home office when he opened the wrong drawer and discovered a folder labeled "Private Investigation, Chen, Family." His fingers trembled as he pulled it open. Inside was a dossier so detailed it made his stomach twist. Bank statements, medical records, employment history, and photographs taken without his knowledge of him and the girls in the weeks leading up to that fateful coffee shop encounter. But it was the final document that sent his blood cold. A psychological evaluation. Subject exhibits signs of severe depression and potential suicidal ideation. Observed behaviors include social withdrawal, weight loss, detachment from peers. High risk for self-harm if current emotional stressors persist. The report was dated to weeks before Victoria had ever spoken to him. Marcus collapsed into the desk chair, the papers shaking in his hands. She hadn't just known about his financial ruin. She had known he was falling apart. She had known how close to the edge he truly was. He barely registered the front door opening or the girls' voices as they came home from school. Only when Victoria's voice echoed from the doorway did he stir. "Marcus, I thought I heard." Her words cut off as her eyes landed on the opened file. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he asked, his voice eerily calm. She stepped inside and quietly shut the door, clearly trying to shield the girls from the explosion waiting to happen. "Marcus, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That this wasn't just a financial background check. That you had me psychologically evaluated like some case study. That you married me because you thought I might kill myself." "That's not why I married you," she said, trying to approach him. But he held up a hand to stop her. "Isn't it? Because according to Dr. Williams, I was showing behavior consistent with severe depression and risk of self-harm. Was this whole thing, this marriage, just some dressed-up suicide intervention?" Victoria's voice cracked. "Marcus, please." "Yes, I was concerned. Yes." The investigator raised alarms, and I wanted to understand the full scope of what you were going through. But none of that changes the fact that I meant every word I said, that I love this family we built. He stood, clutching the folder like a verdict. "You decided to approach me before that day in the coffee shop, before we even spoke. The Sarah story. Was that all just convenient timing? The story about Sarah is true," Victoria snapped, her composure slipping. "I've never lied about that. But yes, I orchestrated our meeting. I've been searching for you for 3 years, and when I found you, when I saw what you were living through, I didn't think it just felt like fate, or opportunity." The bitterness in Marcus's voice was unmistakable now. "A broken man with 2 daughters. Prime subject for your redemption arc." Her eyes flared. "How dare you reduce everything we've been through to a fantasy? Look around, Marcus. Look at the girls. Look at yourself. Tell me all of this has been fake." And he couldn't. Lily was thriving. Emma smiled in her sleep now. And Marcus, he was alive in a way he hadn't been in years. "That doesn't excuse the lie," he murmured, though the edge had dulled. "You're right," Victoria said, moving closer. "I should have told you everything from the beginning. But Marcus, would it have changed anything? If I had told you why I really came to you, would you have accepted my help?" He hesitated. "No," he admitted softly. "I would have walked away. The girls will wonder where we are," she said, her voice gentle. "Can we finish this later, after they're asleep?" He nodded. That evening passed in a haze of normalcy: dinner, homework, bedtime stories, but Marcus felt like an actor in his own life. Later, they sat in the study. The file spread between them like an autopsy of trust. "What do you want me to say?" Victoria asked, voice raw. "That I regret trying to help you? That I regret caring?" "I want the truth," Marcus said. "Why did you marry me? Really?" Her eyes dropped to the report. "Both," she said finally. "I married you because of Sarah's wish, because of what you and the girls needed, but also because I was terrified you'd disappear, that your daughters would wake up one day alone." The honesty hit him harder than any lie. "So now what?" he whispered. "Do we pretend this didn't happen?" Victoria met his gaze, eyes glistening. "That's your choice. But Marcus, please believe me when I say what we have now is real. My love for those girls, and everything I feel for you, it's not pity. It never was." He stared at her, the woman who had once been a stranger, who'd become his anchor, his partner, his home despite the betrayal, despite the pain. He knew the truth of her words. Their beginning might have been built on shaky ground. But what? They had grown together through loss, through struggle, through raw, unfiltered honesty was as real as anything he'd ever known. "I need time to process this," Marcus finally said, his voice heavy with the burden of betrayal. "I need to understand what it means that our marriage began with such a fundamental deception." Victoria nodded, but her eyes shimmered with unspoken fear. "Take all the time you need. Just, please, don't make any permanent decisions while you're angry. Think of the girls. Think of everything we built together." He didn't respond. Instead, he climbed the stairs to the guest bedroom, a choice made for the first time in months, not out of circumstance, but by intention. As he lay there in the silence, the walls of the room unfamiliar despite being in his own house, Marcus carried with him the staggering weight of a truth he could neither unlearn nor ignore. The woman he had built a life with had approached him not out of serendipity, but out of a calculated promise to a dying daughter. It wasn't about whether Victoria had lied. She had. It was about whether the love that had grown between them could survive the poisoned soil in which it had first been planted. For 3 sleepless nights, Marcus lay awake in that room, tangled in a war between memory and emotion. By day, they danced a careful charade, cordial, cooperative for the sake of the girls. But the warmth between them had cooled, the intimacy dulled to something brittle and staged. On the 4th morning, something shifted. Without announcing his thoughts, he asked Victoria to meet him at Sarah's grave. The drive there was steeped in silence, the car filled with the steady rhythm of falling rain, soft and persistent. Like the ache of unfinished grief, Sarah's headstone stood solemn, adorned with fresh flowers and a small American flag, tokens of love and remembrance that Victoria replaced faithfully each week. She lived with courage and died with honor, Marcus read softly, his voice nearly lost in the breeze. Sarah Elizabeth Morrison Blackwood, beloved daughter. He swallowed. I should have asked sooner. But what was Sarah really like, beyond the stories you told the girls? Victoria blinked, startled by the question, but she seemed to understand. She was stubborn, like me, fiercely passionate. She believed deeply in cousins, but she was gentler than I ever learned to be. She had this beautiful way of disarming tension with humor and making everyone feel like they mattered. Marcus nodded, eyes still fixed on the stone. Tell me about the promise she asked you to make. I told you already. Tell me again. He said, word for word. If you remember. Victoria's eyes fluttered shut, her breath catching as if opening a door to a memory long sealed. She said, Mom, if anything happens to me, find Marcus Chen, the soldier who pulled me out of that burning vehicle in Afghanistan. Make sure he's okay. Make sure his family is taken care of. Promise me. And you said. I said I promised. Her voice trembled. I thought she was just scared. I didn't think she'd really. Marcus turned to her, truly seeing her for the first time in days. Victoria, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She nodded, bracing. If Sarah hadn't made you promise, would you still have come looking for me after reading that psych eval? Victoria didn't rush to answer. She stood in the silence, letting the rain speak while she weighed her truth. I don't know, she said finally. I want to believe I would have, that anyone with the ability to help would help. But maybe not. There are so many people in pain, and I can't save them all. Sarah's wish gave me permission to focus on you specifically. So, it was suicide prevention. Yes, it was that, and honoring Sarah's last request, and being drawn to the kind of father you are, and a dozen other tangled reasons. Does it matter which one came first? Does it change what we become? Marcus looked down at the grave again, reflecting on a young woman he had only known for an hour 2 decades ago, yet whose final breath had sent ripples through his entire life. You know what I think Sarah would say? He asked. Victoria shook her head. She'd tell us to stop overthinking and focus on what matters. The girls are thriving. We become a family. We care about each other. Everything else, it's just noise. Victoria's eyes filled with cautious hope. Marcus, are you saying I'm saying I've been an idiot? He cut in. I've been so caught up in the why that I forgot to appreciate the what we built, what we've chosen together after you found me. He reached for her hand, surprised by how cold her fingers were in the autumn air. Victoria, I don't care anymore if you married me out of pity, duty, or love. What matters is that we've made it real. We've turned a promise into a life. She squeezed his hand with desperate gratitude. So you forgive me? I forgive you for caring enough to lie, but no more secrets. If we're going to last, we have to be honest. Always. Agreed, she whispered. Complete honesty, even when it's hard. They stood in silence, letting the gravity of it all settle over them. Then Victoria drew in a breath, as if readying herself to leap. There's one more thing, something I've been afraid to admit, even to myself. Marcus tensed. I'm falling in love with you. She said it so quietly, it was almost lost in the rustle of leaves. Not with the idea of you. Not with our family. With you. Your kindness. Your strength. The way you ground me. It scares me, because I didn't expect it, and I don't know how to do this. Not at my age. Marcus felt something bloom inside his chest, warm and steady, as if a long-frozen part of him had begun to thaw out Victoria. He said, turning to face her fully, I've been falling in love with you, too. I just didn't know how to admit it without undoing what we had. Her eyes widened with wonder. So, what now? Marcus looked one last time at Sarah's grave, then leaned in and kissed Victoria gently, reverently. A kiss not of obligation, but of choice, their first real kiss. Now, he said, we go home to our daughters, and we stop pretending this isn't a real marriage. They walked back to the car, hand in hand, lighter than they'd been in days. The pain of the revelation had cracked something open between them, something honest, something unbreakable. 2 years later, Marcus stood in their sunlit kitchen, watching Victoria guide Emma through the delicate art of cracking eggs. Lily played a Chopin piece in the next room, her fingers dancing over the keys with quiet confidence. Daddy, look, Emma said proudly. No shells this time. Marcus ruffled her hair and kissed Victoria on the cheek. These simple domestic moments still stunned him with their beauty. They had moved into the same bedroom 6 months ago. No more pretense. No more boundaries. Just love. The music drifted through the house, a melody of healing and home. So, Victoria said as she flipped a pancake, you nervous about today? He shook his head, though excitement fluttered in his chest. Today marked the launch of Chen Construction Consulting, his leap back into the world he thought he'd lost, and it was Victoria who had made it possible. Excited, he said, and grateful, especially for the Hendersons. I just opened the door. Victoria smiled. You walked through it. They'd found their rhythm, her unwavering belief in him, his willingness to accept support without shame. Girls, breakfast. Victoria called. They gathered around the table, the same one where arguments had turned into truths and where love had finally spoken its name. Later, as Marcus was about to leave, Lily stopped him. Dad, do you think Mom would have liked Victoria? The question stilled him. Yes, he said, without hesitation. I think your mom would have loved her. She would have been grateful you had someone like her. Lily nodded. Good, because I love her. But I didn't want to hurt Mom's feelings. Marcus knelt beside her. Loving Victoria doesn't take anything away from your love for Mom. Love multiplies. It doesn't divide. That's what Victoria said, too. From the hallway came Victoria's voice, ushering them out the door. As they left Marcus for his first client, Victoria for a board meeting, the girls for school, she caught his hand. Marcus, I'm proud of you. For the business. For everything. For choosing love over fear. He looked at her, seeing not just the woman who had saved him, but the one who had loved him, into believing he could save himself. Thank you, he said, for seeing beauty in brokenness, for making us whole. Victoria's smile, soft, radiant, and warm, had become as familiar to Marcus as the laughter lines etched around his children's eyes. It wasn't just a smile anymore. It was home. It was the comfort he once thought he'd never feel again. As they exchanged their final glances before parting ways that morning, that tender smile lingered in his heart like a balm over old wounds. Thank you, she had whispered, her voice trembling with sincerity, for letting me love you all. And just like that, they turned toward their separate paths for the day, Victoria heading into her own world, and Marcus stepping into his. But something within him had shifted, quietly, profoundly. What had begun as a marriage of necessity, a desperate pact sealed not in passion, but in hope, had evolved into something neither of them could have foreseen. Marcus Chen, once a man bowed by grief and struggle, now carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had discovered not just survival, but meaning. The laminated business card tucked into his worn leather wallet still read, Marcus Chen, construction consultant. It was a title he'd earned through grit and long nights, through endless sacrifice and sheer will. But today, that title felt almost secondary. If someone asked who he was now really was, he could just as easily pull out a different card, one unspoken, unwritten, but deeply engraved in the fabric of his being: husband, father, grateful soul, because that's who he had become, not through brute effort alone, but through the unwavering grace of a woman who had dared to believe in him when he himself had all but forgotten how. Victoria had seen beyond the broken man standing before her that day long ago. She hadn't been afraid of his weariness, or the children clutching his hands, or the silence he wore like armor. She had seen not just who he was, but who he could become, and that belief had breathed life back into his lungs, warmth back into his home, and hope back into his heart. It had all begun with a final wish, a dying girl's plea whispered into the folds of fate. Sarah Morrison Blackwood. Her name echoed in Marcus's chest with reverence. Her last request, simple and profound, had been the stone dropped in a still pond, sending ripples none of them could have imagined. And oh, how those ripples had changed them all. Sarah hadn't just saved Marcus and his children. She had woven a tapestry of second chances, one thread at a time. And Marcus had grown into the kind of man she would have been proud to know, rooted, present, thriving. He was no longer just okay. He was alive in the truest sense of the word, surrounded by a family that had been built not from blood alone, but from choice, love, and the quiet resilience of the human heart. As he steered his truck toward his first client meeting of the day, sunlight spilled through the windshield like a quiet blessing. The road stretched ahead open, full of promise. Marcus glanced briefly at the sky, then whispered into the silence, a voice cracked with emotion, "Thank you, Sarah." There were no grand speeches, no orchestral swells, just that quiet moment, a man remembering the young woman who had lit a candle in his darkness and set his life on a course toward healing. Then, with a deep breath, Marcus turned his eyes forward. The past was behind him. Love had rewritten his present, and the future, it waited wide, wild, and full of wonder.